Rita Lucarelli studied at the University of Naples, where she received her MA degree in classical languages and Egyptology. Her 2005 PhD is from Leiden University in the Netherlands, and her dissertation was published in 2006 as The Book of the Dead of Gat-Seshen, that's a tough one to say, Gat-Seshen, Ancient Egyptian Funerary Religion in the 10th Century BC. From 2005 to 2010, Dr. Lucarelli held a part-time position as lecturer in Egyptology at the University of Verona. From 2009 to 12, she worked as a research scholar on the Book of the Dead project at the University of Bonn. And she was a visiting research scholar at the Italian Academy of Advanced Studies at Columbia University in 2009, and at the Institute for the Study of the Ancient World, or ISA, at NYU in 2012. Until June 2014, she worked as a research scholar and a lecturer at the Department of Egyptology at Bonn, and she's held a part-time position as lecturer in the same field at the University of Bari in Italy. Clearly, she gets around. As for the present day, Rita Lucarelli is currently Associate Professor of Egyptology at the University of California, Berkeley, and Faculty Curator of Egyptology at the Phoebe A. Hearst Museum of Anthropology there. And may we take this moment to congratulate her on her very recent achievement of getting tenure at the University of California, Berkeley. Collective sigh of relief. What a wonderful feeling that is. She's also a fellow of the Digital Humanities at Berkeley, and she's currently working at a project to produce 3D models of ancient Egyptian coffins at the Hearst Museum. The magical spells decorating these objects are taken as a case study for investigating the materiality of the text in relation to ancient Egyptian funerary literature. Dr. Lucarelli is completing a monograph on demonology in ancient Egypt, and she's one of the coordinators of the Ancient Egyptian Demonology Project, which has the very cool website address of www.demonthings.com. She's also working on a web project called The Book of the Dead in 3D on the visualization of ancient Egyptian coffins through photogrammetry. But tonight, it's all about the demons. Please welcome Dr. Rita Lucarelli.
Good evening, and so do I talk, and I don't need to use this, maybe? Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Peter, and thank you to the HMNC for this kind invitation. I'm very happy to speak here tonight, and coming from California. I'm a South Italian. I've been living now for 5 years in California. It's good to be reminded what winter is. I mean, this is sunny day for you, but for me still very cold. But anyway, I'm very happy to be here and to talk about my favorite topic ever, magic and demonology, especially, as Peter said, I'm completing a monograph on demons in ancient Egypt, a topic that is keeping me busy since years now, but is still very exciting, and I keep making new discoveries, little discoveries that I'm happy to share tonight with you. So to start, anyway, before speaking about the demons, I would like to talk about magic in ancient Egypt and define, indeed, what is magic for and what was magic for the ancient Egyptians. And I will show you different kind of sources, objects, text, and talk on the objects about their functions and how they relate to magical techniques. And to start with, one of my favorite objects ever is this statuette. It's a wooden figurine, actually, dated to the late Middle Kingdom. You can probably, okay, they give me a very fancy, yes, pointer. So details, you can note the lion-headed face, and that she's holding is a female naked body. She's holding two snake wands. They look like this one that is kept in Cambridge, And those are clearly tools used in magic. This one in particular has been found entangled with hair. So going back to the statuette, we do not know exactly how it was used, but there are signs of use on it. So it was used in some performance. And in this case, this is one of the rare cases where we also have an archaeological context of magic. Generally, magical tools and texts are a bit found out of context. This one was found in what we call the magician tomb. So a tomb near the Ramesseum in Thebes, where there were also other objects related to magical practices and even papyri with magical text. So we know it was anyway figurine used in magic, representing maybe a goddess, a female version of a dwarf god with lion head called Bess, that I will show you later, or maybe it was a sort of priestess with a lion mask. So in order to be assimilated to the gods, we'll see other examples, priests could wear a mask. We don't know exactly, but it was an object found in a context that speaks all about magic. And the snake is snake wands or snake figures are very much used in ancient Egyptian magic. So I thought that in order to define Egyptian magic, we should also speak about the reception of ancient Egyptian magic in the West. And the snake still plays a role already in antiquity. So already starting from the Bible, probably you are familiar with the story that is told in Exodus. We have is a biblical story where we have Egyptian magicians who are presented as a sort of indeed wizards trying to do illusions, work with illusions, while the real performers of miracles, so the real magic, we could say, is the one performed by Aaron. Aaron's staff transforming in a snake and swallowing the staffs of the Egyptian magicians. And it is said, if you can read on the screen, that the Egyptian magicians also did the same things by their secret arts. So Egyptian magic was already seen as a secret art, as something secret, connected mostly to illusion, not real, basically, and also not truth. That's why, in the end, we can say that God's snake won, basically, on the Egyptian snakes. This conception of magic as something related to illusion, to trickster gods or professionists is not the real one that we had in ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, magic was a god, or better, we call magic a god who in ancient Egyptian is called Heka, and is represented in this image from Ramessic tomb of Ramses I, as indeed an anthropomorphic male figure. He plays an important role. He's standing in the solar boat with the sun god, and the scenes representing the sun god in the boat during a journey in the netherworld are very common in ancient Egypt, are very important. They symbolize the way the cyclical becoming of night and day, of rebirth and death and rebirth continue to happen, so day by day. So basically the whole creation is represented in the scene of the sun in the boat, and Heka being part of the boat of the solar god means that Heka plays a role in creation. So we translate Heka as magic, but there is a problem of translation of an indigenous Egyptian term translated in a word that in English has a different perception. Magic, the English magic comes from Greek mageia, but the Greek word used from the 5th century BC had a negative meaning. So mageia was a practice against the gods. This is not the case for Egyptian magic. Egyptian magic is integral part of religion, and Heka is personified as a god. So magic is a god. Another one of my favorite images of the god Heka is this one from a papyrus of the Book of the Dead, so a magical scroll to protect the deceased in the tomb and accompanying him or her in the journey in the netherworld. And so here we see Osiris on a throne, accompanied also by the goddess of truth and of order, Mat. And after Mat, you recognize again this male human figure holding snake staff. So again, the snake wand is a symbol of magic, and is a scene of the deceased arriving in the netherworld, entering the so-called Hall of Truth. So magic is definitely seen as something positive, and there is also another interesting goddess. It's a sort of minor goddess, not always mentioned in textbooks on the ancient Egyptian pantheon, but Weret Hekau, literally to be translated as great of magic, was an important goddess, also represented with the sun disk, so connected to the solar god again. In this scene, crowning the pharaoh, also in other contexts, protecting the deceased. And this name, this divine name, Weret Hekau, great of magic, can be found also in connection to other goddesses, like Isis, Mut, so very well-known goddesses. So to be great of magic is actually something divine, is a very positive characteristic. So in my study, okay, I'd never used this cream. So I cannot really, this is not an advertising slide, but I just speaking about Egyptian magic, and since what I'm trying to do in my research also distinguish different kind of magical practices and different kind of magics, I thought it was nice photos to have. So if you want to try it anyway, I know my students told me that can be found at Target. So what kind of magic they used in ancient Egypt, why they needed magic, and why we speak of magic as something anyway distinguished from the greater phenomenon of religion, although it is strongly connected to religion. The Egyptians were basically obsessed with protection, being protected from everything and everybody in life and in death. And in order to be protected, they were using a lot of magical practices, magical texts, and they were also asking the favor of the gods, of course, who should help to protect. So what we call defensive or apotropaic magic is a magic used especially for protection, in order to ward off the danger before the danger arrives. And when we will talk about demons as well, you will see how important was to be able to ward off danger, especially not only in the netherworld, but especially in certain regions of the netherworld where dangers were very common. So spells of defensive magic can be found on different kind of objects. We have amulets, objects of protection, which are also part of this phenomenon that we can call defensive magic. But sometimes, well, they weren't able to use those spells of defensive magic on time. And so if something went wrong, if they would got bitten by a dangerous snake or already have symptoms of illness, they will need what we could call curative magic. So the difference is that, well, let's say if you're on time and you see the snake coming, you can still recite a spell of defensive magic, but if the snake already been biting you, then you can still use curative magic, and hopefully you'll be fine later on. So we have also healing statues used in temples for disease, to cure disease, and text which we call magico-medical text, meaning that magic was mixed with real medical practices and medical knowledge, and I'll return on that later on. Another interesting kind of magic used in Pharaonic Egypt, but also later on in Greco-Roman Egypt and a lot in antiquities, transformative magic, which you can also find in books named as love magic. Probably you're more familiar with love magic. Love magic is make sure to bind your the person, change. You can change the feelings of a person so that he or she will love you in forms of spells of love magic, or you can try to transform their. You can try to bind the person to you. But transformative magic can also be very positive, not aggressive as love magic, and can be found also in funerary mortuary papyri, where the deceased say that he wished to transform in a god or in a divine animal, even in a plant, in a sort of very powerful beings. Also, we should be aware anyway that there was no black magic in Egypt. So the concept of black magic is really more of a Western concept, and probably you now already understand why. Heka being a god, part of creation, there was no way that magic was illegal. We have a few examples of spells used against magical spells used against the state, the pharaoh. In that case, that became an illegal form of magic, because in ancient Egypt you could use magic for your own good, but you could maybe also use it, we have some cases, to harm a personal adversary, but you cannot use it against the pharaoh, because that would be like going against gods. So we do not have black magic, and magic was a totally divine matter. Who were the main agents of magic? Well, the Egyptian magicians were priests, they could be doctors, they could be also local wise men. We have different kind of magicians. But they had to deal a lot with the supernatural world. They had to be able to summon up the gods. And not only the gods, but also some other liminal creatures that I call demons. And so today I would like to explain to you why I call demons and why I differentiate them from the gods. But before doing that, we should also first speak about the divine dimension and what gods were in ancient Egypt. They were called necheru. So nature is the singular for natural, plural, the gods. And gods were very often represented also in papyri, or in temples, on the same, let's say, the same kind of sources that we find that we use for demons were also used for the representation of gods. How can we differentiate what is a god and what is a demon? Where gods appear a lot in myths of creations, where demons don't. So this is a typical scene of the creation according to the so-called Heliopolitan myths, so based on the myth of the sun god as creator, Atum, the form of the sun god, and it's a beautiful image with the sky goddess Nut arching over the earth god Geb, and Shu, the god of air, sustaining the sky with a lot of other deities all around. Is a scene that is often represented also on sarcophagi, is a protective scene for, especially for the deceased who wants to be reborn as a god as well. So gods are part of a mythic dimension, and demons are not. Gods also really take care of the deceased and also people in the on earth. So in this beautiful scene, we see again a priest with a mask of the god Horus, the falcon god, who is performing the ritual of the mouth on the mummified deceased. And this ritual for opening the mouth was a powerful ritual for empowering the body of the dead and having it ready for the journey in the afterlife. So gods really take care of the deceased, while demons, we will see, communicate with the deceased and also with humankind on earth, but they do not really take care of them. They just need to be appeased or make sure that they will not be angry at you. Another important dimension, which is especially connected to the world of especially the main gods, the official pantheon, is the cultic dimension. So gods have cults on earth, they have shrines, they are worshipped. While demons, well, there are exceptions of demons that had some kind of worship, but in general, they only appear in a different setting where there's no sign of real worship. It's only about communicating with the demons. Here we see again Ra, here Ra Orakte in this stela with the deceased and his wife honoring it. A problem that we have with gods and demons, and there are many of them, is a problem of identification. So manifestation, how the gods and demons manifest and how we recognize them. And the most unlucky one in being recognized is Wepwawet, who is a jackal god. He's an independent jackal god. His name means the opener of the ways, and indeed is found as guardian of gates. But he is very much confused with, as in this comics, with the most famous Anubis, also jackal god, taking care of mummification. So these generally gods have a more fixed iconography in comparison to demons. Demons can switch shapes more often, but we have, for instance, many jackal demons and many jackal gods, some anonymous figures I'll show you soon that cannot be identified. So how you do in these cases, that's where context and text, if we are lucky to have text, help a lot. So here is, again, a difference with Anubis and Wepwawet. Generally, Wepwawet is mostly represented as a full jackal animal, while Anubis has the head of a jackal and human body, but not always. Sometimes they are represented together and they are both two jackals. So it's an open issue how to recognize divine or supernatural figures. And we have also a lot of jackal demons, as I say. So I already say too many times demons. Demons, what are demons in ancient Egypt? We have seen magic. Heka was a god. Again, we have first of all talk about the terminology we are using, which is sort of conventional translation of ancient concepts expressed in a different way. So Heka we translate it with magic, and what do we translate with demons? There's no one Egyptian word in ancient Egypt that we can really translate as demon. The English word comes from Greek daimon, and the term daimon, I'll talk to you about it in a bit, is also very ambiguous, can mean a lot of things. But the perception we have of demons is generally the perception created by the Judeo-Christian sphere of religion, where demons are basically bad. They are negative figures. They are punishers. So this is one of my favorite images of Dante's Divina Commedia, the Divine Comedy, representing the 9 circles of hell, and that's the 9th circle where betrayers are punished by these demons. And so demons are seen indeed as punishers. They're totally negative beings. We will see how that's not the case in ancient Egypt. Also, demons are seen from the same kind of perception as symbols of temptation, sin. So in this very early painting of Michelangelo, The Torment of Saint Anthony, we see represented an episode written in the life of Saint Anthony when he had a dream. He was levitating in the sky while being in the desert and attacked by demons. But of course, he was a very strong saint, and he defeated all those demons. And here, demons are sins and temptations. And this is also not the case for the ancient Egyptian demons. Also, we think to demons as possessing humans. They possess the body. So we have a lot of horror movies reminding us about this, like The Exorcist, 1973. There are no real cases of possession in ancient Egypt, although we will see how, especially in relation to disease and illnesses, they were kind of personifying the disease as a demon. So some scholars speak of possession in that case, since the disease is possessing the body, but it's not exactly the same as in the real Christian ideology. And demons are much feared today. In my homeland in Italy, there is an exorcism, a prayer of liberation course. You can just enroll for 400 euros. It will take place in May, the next one, and is offered also to teachers. Maybe they think students can be kind of possessed of demonic. But anyway, so demons are still really there, really actual, as very dangerous creatures. And so one has to be related, has to call God the only good God in order to be free from the demons. But let's go back to antiquity. So let's see the definition of daimon, which is where the word demon comes from. There are many definitions of daimon and daimones in from ancient Greek authors and philosophers, but the most famous one is certainly the one from the Symposium from Plato. So in Plato's Symposium, learned men, philosophers are discussing about love. And well, love is also considered by some of them as a demon. So that's why they explain what demons are, daimones. And so it says in this passage that you can read on the screen, everything that is daimonic is intermediate between God and mortal. Daimones are interpreters and ferrymen, carrying divine things to mortals and mortal things to gods, requests and sacrifices from below, and commandments and answers from above. For the divine does not mix with the mortal, and it is only through the mediation of the daimones that mortals can have an interaction with the gods, either while awake or while asleep. So this idea of demons as intermediates actually fits very well the Egyptian conception of demons, seen as some scholars speak of minor gods, but anyway, liminal figures that kind of communicate between the main gods and the humans. There is also another term that I like a lot to define Egyptian demons, in general pre-Christian demons, which is actually a German word, Grenzgänger, meaning literally the border crossers, and it's a word used by an historian of religion from Heidelberg, Gregor Hahn, who was indeed talking, and he was studying and writing about pre-Christian concepts of the supernatural. He actually told me once that there's no way to translate it in English, that I should just use the word Grenzgänger because, well, the German is very pregnant, but, well, I think border crossers renders the idea. The Greeks also distinguished good and bad demons. So in particular, the Agathos daimon was seen as a snake, as a benevolent snake, here represented in this fresco in Pompeii near an altar. So demons in ancient Greece already weren't, by definition, bad. They could be good or bad. And here we are getting much closer to the ancient Egyptian concept of demons. And so here they are, some of those creatures that I call demons because so like you can see all those, no, this is the deceased, the goddess of the tree. So some of them, as I said, gods and demons appear together, but those beings, hybrid being with the animal head, not all of them, and mummified sitting body, holding knives, those are not gods with temples. Sometimes they are anonymous. And they are represented a lot, especially in mortuary papyri, on coffins, in tombs, because they guard regions of the netherworld. They are not necessarily bad. They can only be dangerous to the one who doesn't have the specific knowledge to approach them. And this specific secret knowledge is contained in these spells written on papyri, in tombs and coffins. And those spells give us the names of these demons, all tell us which region of gate they are guarding. So they are anyway protectors, they are guardians. And they have many names, different names, not just one. So there is not one name, again, that we can translate as demons. Sometimes they have no names. They are only represented, like here, in a series of always holding knives, or again, demon snake wand. I particularly like this one with the duck on his head. I'm still looking for inspiration. It's a hieroglyph for fear, but I didn't find parallels still. Also, some of them, as you can see here, they hold lizards, which is a symbol of fertility, of abundance. And you can see some of them are jackal-headed. We have two here, but are those Anubis, are those Wepwawet, or is this just a jackal demon? Those are questions one cannot answer without the caption saying the name, but the function is clear. They are protecting here the mummified body of the deceased in the center. And here the mummified body is the symbol of the mummified Osiris, the god of the dead, who will be then reborn. So those kind of protectors cannot be considered main gods. They can not be considered, though, as bad demons. You can see some of the names, and here is another image of those guardians here represented in this papyrus in front of doors, so sometimes as a triad or individually. Here the deceased and the wife who are entering those these regions and have to pass through different gates. So names like face downwards, numerous of shapes, or said of voice, one who stretch out his brow, one with vigilant face, or the radiant one, are very evocative names. They say something about their function. They make allusions. They can describe a physical characteristic of the demons. And sometimes some of these names are also used for gods as epithets, god epithets. So there is, anyway, a lot of interconnections between those gods and demons. And this is instead the coffin. And maybe you can see here how the deceased is entering again a region at the end. Here is the text he has to reside, and then the demon is represented in one gate. Another example of beautiful coffin with a series of demons is this one. I have some close-up to show you the creatures. Why on the side of the cases? Just generally, that's the place of the demons on coffins. Well, they were really protecting very close by the mummified body. So it's an allusion, of course, to the myth of death and rebirth of Osiris, and how those divine and demonic guardians were protecting Osiris' body. And at the Museum of Fine Arts here, there is also one of the cutest guardians I know, with the 4 cobras. Is an identified fragment, and I hope to work on this later on. But at least I could see from the text that this fragment comes from a longer text, which is part of a spell on how to approach these guardians. So there's the spell from the 8th portal of spell 145 of the Book of the Dead. And this guy with also, as you can see again, is holding a knife, is called He Who Protects His Body. So his body, meaning the body of the deceased. So again, those are protectors, are not evil demons. And we have a few 3D-dimensional versions of those guardians. This is the one I used for the flyer of this lecture. A very impressive little statuettes. They've been found only in royal tombs, kind of mysterious still, why only in a certain context, royal context, Ramessid, New Kingdom and Ramessid period. And so we see here the head of a gazelle, seems like, and the body in this contour position, almost a bit menacing, aggressing. We have also another statue of the same group with the demon, which is definitely turtle demon. So it has the head of a turtle, and it's really beautiful also how they connect the animal shape with the wig, with the human part. And so those also, the only possible explanation is that they were protecting, guarding the tomb of the pharaohs. But where are the scary demons? Do we have scary demons in ancient Egypt, or is only about guardians and protectors? And we have seen they're kind of cute. They're not really scary. I cannot say the guardian demons are scary. What we intend anyway as scary demons, again, is a question of interpretation, of perception. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, of course. So maybe for what is beautiful or ugly for us wasn't for the ancient Egyptians. So for instance, our idea of monster is something ugly, aesthetically ugly. And generally, monster is a composite animal, a kind of fantastic animal, like this one. That is actually an Egyptian creature here in the real version with Anubis. It's called Amemet, the devourer of the dead, and is indeed a composite animal, face of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and a hippopotamus. And she is a lady. She appears only in the scene of the final judgment of the deceased. Here we see the god Anubis, who is taking care of the balance in order to weigh the earth with the goddess Mat. So this is the Egyptian art and the goddess Mat. What Amemet is doing is is ready to devour the deceased who doesn't pass the judgment. Here even more, she's ready. She's ready to go as soon as if the deceased has been lying, committing sin, and so he will recite the negative confession but will not pass the judgment. And here the deceased is Ani. This is one of the most famous papyri of the Book of the Dead with his wife. The god Thoth, the ibis god Thoth, is writing the verdict, and then after that, Amemet could devour the deceased, but in fact that never happened because all the Egyptians who could afford to have a Book of the Dead papyrus in their funerary equipment, they will have the magic knowledge also to make sure to become a blessed dead, a transfigured spirit in the afterlife. So basically they will never be devoured by Amemet, who keeps staying hungry. And this is also, well, I don't know if to consider, sometimes in books you find Amemet described as a monster. In the eyes of the Egyptians, this wasn't a monster. The Egyptians were using composite figures with different animal parts, different hieroglyphs on a daily basis. So this was just, having different animal parts was just a way to really make sure that the god, the demon here showed his power. This can also be maybe considered a sort of scary creatures with the crocodile or vulture head, spitting snakes, holding other snakes, even with daggers on the feet. What was their function, though? Well, they were actually scaring another kind of demons, the nightmare demons. Nightmares were seen as demons, but the bad one, the real bad one, and they are never represented. Basically, the Egyptians never represent the evil demons. They only represented the protectors. So here, those are protectors, and they are depicted at the basis of this headrest, which was used indeed for sleeping, although I know it doesn't look very comfortable, but we have a lot from ancient Egypt. As I say, nightmare demons weren't represented, but they were feared, and we have spells against them, like this one, a book of dispelling terrors which come to fall upon a man during the night. And indeed, the nightmare demons was seen as coming from the sky, falling on really the breast of the sleeper, like in this painting. And this is a bit the sensation we have when we wake up from a nightmare, actually feeling kind of heavy in our chest. And so maybe this kind of descriptions were also made on the basis of what they felt. And other evil demons that are not so often represented are maybe, because I cannot be sure of this interpretation, can be represented in this sketch. We see a kind of human figure sketched here, attacked by very stylized crocodiles. And this is a very short papyrus used as an amulet on the neck, rolled and kept on the neck, with the spell here, which speaks about protection against evil dead. I have the text here. They talk about male enemy, male dead, female dead. And so the evil dead is a sort of companion of the demons we have been seeing. But they are never represented again. So spells against those evil menacing creatures are very common, but we do not have representations of those demons. Speaking about these amuletic papyri, we have the so-called oracular amuletic decrees, which are strips of papyri kept in those, well, we don't have many examples. This is one of the most beautiful papyrus holder, and brought at the neck as protection. And so they were, as I say, seeking protection from every male spirit, dead, demon, every female spirit. And this text, then they mentioned the demon, I mean, the weret is the Egyptian term we translated as demon, of the water, of the city, of the village, of the street. Everywhere could be one of those bad demons, but they, for a sort of taboo, are never represented. And these are the demons that I call wanderers, because differently from the guardians, they go around. They are not static as the guardians, just limited to their own, to protecting their own gate. And they wander around, and they can bring deceased. They can be called in spells as messengers, murderers, or other similar names that make us think that they were going around in gangs, but they were controlled by main gods, in this case by the lioness goddess Sekhmet. So this is also an indication that demons can be controlled and subordinated to gods, and therefore they are different. And very nice, the only example I found of a deceased demon represented is this headache demon, we call it, because Sehakek literally means in ancient Egypt half head. And if you suffer of migraine, you know that takes half head, and it's very demonic. So apparently that's what this young male represents, Sehakek. In the text on this ostracon, we also have the name of the parents, which seems to be like foreigner name, not Egyptians. He's covering his face, and he has here not his tail, but his tongue on his back. We know that because of the text. We say, you with the tongue on your back. So those bad demons could also really have a distorted body, a body which is not the proper body that should be. And this demonization of illness is actually also common in other, not just religions, but just feeling for getting rid of the illness in general. You have representation like here of the tooth worm as an hell demon, and this is just an ivory carving with this hellish scene. Probably in also talking with colleagues that work on other demonic traditions where also we have the deceased demons, it seems that demonizing an illness helped the patient psychologically also to be strong and get rid of the illness. And this is why we have many magical spells where medical prescriptions are also included. It seems like the Egyptian doctor were using magical spells together with medical knowledge, and probably they saw that the combination of the two was really effective. So now that we have just seen a bit of different kind of demons in ancient Egypt, what about a comparison of the Egyptian demons with neighboring countries, so especially with Mesopotamia, which is a close neighbor of ancient Egypt? It seems that in Mesopotamia we have instead many more evil demons, and that the conception of being protected by the demons was also much stronger. So in this amulet against Lamashtu, Lamashtu is a famous female demon, a demoness who was especially feared by because of killing babies. We see here the iconography of, what is here? This. Lamashtu is trampling a donkey, which reminds an Egyptian iconography where anyway we see the god, Horus the child, trampling crocodiles, and the crocodiles here are the dangerous animal connected to also to the evil demons. And on top of these two amuletic objects, this is called Chipus of Horus, indeed, because of the figure of Horus the child, we see also two similar frontal faces. This is a god, again, is Bes, is apotropaic god with a sort of lion face, protecting women during childbirth from the bad demons. While this is Pazuzu, also very dangerous demon. In this context, Pazuzu, a demon, is protecting the owner of the amulets from Lamashtu. While here we have two god's figure in an object which is again a magical object to heal from patients with disease, but the iconography is much more connected to the idea that gods are in charge, let's say, on the demons. So when you compare the different demonologies in polytheistic systems, so pre-Christian demonology, you can see kind of nuances and differences, how they dealt with demons. The most important thing for me is that anyway, they all had beliefs in demons, in not main gods. And so I also think that if Mesopotamia had demons as well as other ancient civilizations, why Egypt should not? Why we should not speak about demons in ancient Egypt? So that's why in my book I talk still about ancient Egyptian demonology. I call demons agents of protection, agents of punishment according to the context, but I still speak about demons, while there are other scholars who prefer to speak only of gods in ancient Egypt, minor and major gods, because we do not have a word for demon. Also, what we do not have in ancient Egypt is a real demonology, which is good for me because then, well, I can write a lot. I can do the demonology that they didn't do. So demonology intended as a discourse on demons, something that we found, for instance, instead in the Jewish world, where we have many texts describing demons, categories of demons, hierarchies of demons. These are also magical objects, so-called Jewish Babylonian incantation ball, a bit older than the objects we have seen from ancient Egypt. They were inscribed also with magical spells all around, mostly having a sacred text, and then having the image of a demon in the middle. And those are well-known demons with long traditions that went through the Renaissance, through the Jewish world, and is Asmodeus. It's called this very dangerous demons, although here you can see looks more like a sort of Batman or kind of funny one. Those sketches were not made by a really skilled artist. The purpose was not to have very nice representation of the demons as for the ancient Egyptian sources, but they had much more information on these beings. By the way, those balls were used in houses in order, it seems, to trap the demon, to make sure that he will not move around freely in the house. They're very interesting objects that are being currently studied. So we do not have a demonology, but we do have in ancient Egypt a lot of demons. We've seen many sources, and I'm currently working in finding demons on coffins because, well, papyri have been very much studied until now, while we have many beautiful coffins around that in museums that are still unstudied. And coffins also have mentions of guardian demons or spells, speaking like this one, spell 72 of the Book of the Dead, where it is said at a certain point, rescue me from the voracious crocodile, sort of dangerous being, because I know you, I know your name. So it's a very often used spells on those coffins like this one. And as Peter said when he was presenting me, I am working on a project for realizing 3D models of those coffins to make possible to study the three-dimensionality of the object and to study also the materiality of the text, how the text is completely connected to the object. Why text on coffins? Well, especially from the first millennium BC, coffins were used almost as if they were papyri. So we have here, for instance, from this picture, it seems like this is a detail of papyrus with spells. But actually, this comes from a very heavily textualized coffin from the 26th Egyptian dynasty. We have a lot of spells on those coffins. So we can speak of coffin textualization, of coffin magic. They really, especially in the later periods in ancient Egypt, they wanted the protection to be really close to the body, closer than having it on papyri. So we can really learn a lot from those texts, which are variants of the same text used on papyri differently. So my project called the Book of the Dead in 3D, through photogrammetry, is realizing 3D models of coffins and sarcophagi. This is one of them with the spell also connected to demons and protection for preventing the slaughtering done in Hennenesut, kind of a bit mysterious title, but it's connected to also mythological fact and allusions. And as you can see, the text is just here. It's a very abridged version of the same spell we found in papyri. Other coffins we've been working at are those of UFA we found in Berkeley at the Hearst Museum of Anthropology, where we have a vast Egyptian collection still unpublished. And looking through the storage rooms, we could find the inner coffin of this guy UFA, and so we could digitally reunite them. And again, here, we don't have much time, but I'll show you maybe the model. We have many images of mainly gods, but that help a lot to understand how this imagery of gods and demons was used on sources. This is the coffin of Pajenef, which wasn't in great conditions, but we realized the model because it has my favorite guardians on it. So a series of, as you can see, really simply sketched guardians, but they make sure to have the names and part of the text that we find on the most beautiful papyri. We also went a bit out of Berkeley, looking into minor collections, Egyptian collections in California. So the Museum of Man in San Diego also has some interesting coffins with this kind of protective figures, gods and demons. In San Francisco, there is a very interesting Egyptian collection as well, so-called Sutro collections we are working on. As you can see here, these very nice figures. Also, at a certain point, there is a sort of name, and so it's also a snake guardian figure. And let's see now if this works. I'll show you. Oh, OK, yes, it does. So it's just the website where you can find the models of the coffin we've been working until now, and you can download your own 3D model to have at home so you can navigate from the different links. So, for instance, If you go to the coffin, then the 3D model is here. Those 3D models are also online on a site, on a website that will be published soon, where we are working also with annotations. And so here, for instance, for I think this one. What I want to do is make sure that people don't just look at the models, but also understand what is written on it. So you have to learn the spells and know about all these demons. And so a nice thing we can do today with this model is indeed adding annotations and, for instance, clicking on the text part, and see where exactly the text is. Have a transliteration for students of Egyptologists, so it's here, this is just an example of knowing more about the owner, find his name, where is his name, so you can navigate the model at the same time looking at the text, zoom in. Sorry, I don't have a mouse here, it's a bit difficult. Zoom in and zoom out and see the details. And even you can add the vocabulary. So for instance, where is the word to eat? Where is the pronoun? That's very specific, maybe not too interesting, but I think those annotations work very well for and help our study also in general of the Egyptian religions. And you can combine models, of course, when you find ensembles, and so kind of, well, have fun with it by reconnecting them. All right, so I think it's time to conclude this lecture with the last slides. So to conclude, I want to quote a text, which is not a magical text. It's actually a literary text from a very interesting tale of stories of gods fighting between each other, Osiris getting mad to the other gods because they were not solving this important case to decide who is going to be the next, well, it's a longer story, but there was a divine tribunal having to decide between Horus and Seth. And so indeed, this is called the contendings of Horus and Seth. So Osiris get mad with the other gods and say to the gods, now you pay attention to this matter. The land in which I am is full of savage-looking messengers who fear no god or goddess. If I send them out, they will bring me the hurt of every evildoer, and they will be here with me. So here, it seems to me, is speaking of not other gods, of real demons. Those are called messengers also in other spells. And their existence is therefore proved also in non-magical text. And even those beliefs in demons, in the protection you need in the house, in the netherworld, according to certain manifestation of gods and demons, is also present in Egypt nowadays. This is a photo taken in modern times in a village in the south of Egypt, where there is a dead gazelle and a lizard hung from the window of a house. And both gazelle and lizards were two of those animals used in representations of demons, protective demons, but also the dangerous ones. So it seems like the beliefs in demons and protection, magic protection from ancient Egypt are still alive today. And I thank you for your attention.